I'm going to go through some of the other provisions here. Now, I fully admit that some of these are going to pertain to you and some of these aren't. So the ones that don't, obviously, we'll get through pretty quickly, but the ones that do is really good to know about. Well, let's start with new post-death options for surviving spouses. Now, what this is when you are really, say, if you have passed away, your spouse is going to have to inherit your accounts. They can do it in a couple ways here. So especially your retirement accounts is what we're talking about here. One is that they can take those retirement accounts as part of their own and treat it like their own. And then they pay money on the required minimum distributions based upon their age. Well, another way to look at this is that we could have taken it as part of a beneficiary IRA, and we can maintain the age of the deceased spouse. So your deceased spouse. Well, what that will then do is change the fact that we don't have to take as much money out for required minimum distributions. But beneficiaries were still up in the air. So the change has occurred here is that now, if something happens to your spouse and you're taking over their account, you can treat that account like they are still living and it's still their account. Now, why would we do that? Well, especially if you as a surviving spouse were older than your deceased spouse, well, then you could actually have the money set aside and take less out in required minimum distributions today because you're based upon their age, not yours. And then secondly, the other real benefit is that it keeps the beneficiaries intact as the first line. So what that will do then is, especially if some of your beneficiaries qualify under the new provisions for continuing that stretch IRA that we talked about very early on that went away. Well, that's for the majority of individuals, but there are still some individuals who are eligible. So those are the eligible beneficiaries that could stretch out the account over the course of their lifetime and pay less in tax because of that. And if that's the case, then it'd be a great option to look for to do this. But what this also shows is that there are now many, many options that we're going to have to go through. This is not just an easy process of saying, do you want to take the account as part of your name or do you want to take it as part of an inherited account? Now we have a lot of planning, and this is just a very rudimentary flow chart here that we've put together as part of this, and we're going to have to update this to actually look pretty. But I just want to show you that there are now many options that we have to go through here. And when it pertains to all that, that's one of the planning pieces that you can go through. Okay. Well, let's come back to what we talked about with the qualified charitable distributions. You see, QCDs are huge when it comes to planning. Now, what those really are ways that you can direct money from your IRA account or your retirement account and go directly to the charity. Huge benefit for you tax-wise, and we get to benefit the charity that you're donating this money to. Well, the new changes that have come about are the fact that now, instead of going from your IRA account to the charity, we can direct it to, say, a trust, like a charitable trust. And that allows you a lot more options as part of the trust language of how to distribute that money to the different charities. So now we can have a very good option of saying we can be going to those charities, but as part of a trust. And this is something new. But we can do up to $50,000. So one time, lifetime, $50,000, not only for you, but we could do it for your spouse. So we could go $100,000 into one of these trusts. And it may or may not be advantageous for you to do. So obviously check with your tax professionals and your attorneys to figure this out correctly if it's going to be tax efficient to do this, or cost efficient, I should say, because these plans do have a lot more costs associated with them, but the options they provide can be very beneficial.